hear it all the time. Don't get an upset stomach. Don't worry your stomach sick. There's all these different phrases that talk about emotions and how they play into our digestive organs in our stomach. So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about how the central nervous system, our brain and spinal cord, relate to our digestive organs, our stomach, our small intestine, our large intestine, and the other organs associated. So when we get worried, when we get anxious, when we are fearful, when our mind gets stuck in an emotion or a thought pattern that is anywhere outside of the now moment and the peace that exists inside of that now moment, we begin to activate lower centers of the brain. So we get the fear response, we get the amygdala gets activated, we have basically that reptilian brain coming online, and a sympathetic nervous system response of that fight or flight, not rest and digest. It's that fight or flight response that's going to shunt blood away from the digestive system. It's going to put the blood instead in your muscles and in your brain so that you can move fast and make quick decisions, right? You're also going to get other changes to the physiology. Your pupils will dilate more so they can take in more light and see, if we can react faster visually. So there's all these survival responses that begin to reflect in our physiology. Another one is our adrenal glands start pumping out adrenaline because we're getting ready to, move and do something intense. And over time, if we maintain that worried, anxious, fearful response, if our nervous system and our central nervous system gets stuck in that response, then our adrenal glands over time begin to dump cortisol, which has all sorts of negative influences on the body. And what it really is doing is it's conditioning our physiology away from being at peace, away from that rest, digest response that we find in the parasympathetic nervous system. So, how do we break through those emotional loops and that mental patterning in order to more consciously develop a relationship with our rest and digest response in our digestive part of ourselves, these lower energy centers down here, and being able ultimately to digest food well? So as weird as it might sound, being able to digest food directly relates to how we're able to digest life. So if we can integrate our life experiences and stay grounded in the now moment, in our central nervous system, in our brain and our spinal cord, our posture's upright, our breathing's nice and full, we're doing that full diaphragmatic breathing all the way down into the belly, our shoulders are loose, our face is relaxed, our pupils aren't dilated because we're, in that sympathetic response. We have a nice balanced pupillary response. We have nice balanced physiology. How do we get there? What does that look like? So if all digestion starts in the mind, then it probably is going to make sense to slow down how much the mind is digesting. In our information society, in our technologically driven society, it is so easy to overload our mind with so much stimulus. We wake up in the morning, we perhaps drink a caffeinated beverage and immediately get that stimulus to the brain. We open up our phone and start scrolling through social media. Maybe we open up news, maybe we watch the news on television, and already our nervous system is being bombarded with different information, whether it be chemical or mental emotional, right? And it can be so easy to fall into that pattern of having to watch the news every morning, or having to check your social media every morning, or having to have your cup of coffee every morning. But I'm here to question, is that really serving you? Is that really serving you to wake up first thing in the day and immediately start pulling things in and adding stimulus to what is likely an overwhelmed central nervous system? Most people have an overwhelmed central nervous system, and over time, that will develop into some diagnosis. But just because we don't have a diagnosis and a labeled disease doesn't mean all of us don't have some level of dis-ease. So again, it's from a point of, humility and reverence for ourselves that I say this. Let's check in and see, can we slow down a little bit and hit the pause button on that news? Can we not have to check social media? Can we do a social media fast? Do we have to have that caffeinated beverage in the morning? Right? Do we have to listen to that podcast on our way to work? Do we have to always have an earbud with music playing in it all the time? Do we always have to have a level of stimulation in our brain? Or can we begin to settle into the stillness and the healing and the balance that comes from that stillness? So when we begin to settle into that stillness, recognizing that the central nervous system is a big part of how we're integrating and digesting life, we can begin to find profound moments of gratitude and contentment in our life. And one of the easiest ways to do that is by waking up in the morning and breathing or meditating, or preferably both. So in the morning, we can wake up, we can take nice full breaths into our diaphragm. Breathing into the diaphragm increases the abdominal pressure. Increasing the abdominal pressure stimulates the enteric and parasympathetic nervous system. It stimulates the wave-like contractions through the lumen of the intestines to help stimulate digestion. It also is going to stimulate the central nervous system indirectly to settle down. So that's a really simple thing you can do in the morning. If nothing more, wake up in the morning and take 10, 15, 20 deep breaths down into the belly and the diaphragm. And as you get used to that, maybe you add on the next step. Maybe you do the breathing and then you start to, sit upright and meditate and just breathe and feel your body, feel your throat, feel your face, feel your heart, feel your diaphragm and your solar plexus, feeling down into the lower energy centers and these lower nerve plexuses in our body that go in our digestive tract, right? We have our solar plexus, we have our inferior and superior mesenteric ganglia. We have our sacral nerve plexus. We have all these different nerve bundles down here along our digestive tract that we can breathe into and feel more fully and develop a conscious connection between our central nervous system and those peripheral nerve bundles. So that's a really simple way to get started with improving your digestion by slowing down. A really wonderful way to begin forming a more conscious relationship with digestion. It's already built into our day. It's so simple. It's so unbelievably easy to access because we all have to eat, right? We all have to eat, and that is a built-in part of our day for mindfulness. So eating doesn't start with putting the food in your mouth. Eating and digestion actually starts in our mind. So are we consciously choosing what we're putting inside of our body? That's the first step. If we're not being conscious about what we're choosing and we're just picking the fastest thing, we're probably not feeding ourselves very nourishing food. But if we begin to slow down the mind like we've been talking about and consciously choose what we're feeling, and what I mean by that is what our body is asking for. In certain seasons, our body's going to ask for different things. In the summer, it's going to ask for more salads, fruits, smoothies, lighter things, cooling things. In the winter, it's going to ask for more heartier meals. It's going to ask for, like squash and earthy seasoning, and maybe if you eat meat, more of that heavier meat to kind of thicken up for the winter time. It's always going to be different, and we all have different body types, and we all go through different cycles and seasons and rhythms. So that decision to consciously choose what we're putting inside of our body is really the first step to digestion. The second step of digestion is so simple. It's chewing and eating consciously. So it's built into our day, right? We have to sit down and we have to eat a meal. And when we settle ourselves and eat our food consciously without watching the TV, without having to have a conversation, without having to be on our computer while we're eating, right? If we can just sit down and eat our food and chew our food thoroughly and make sure that we are enjoying it and slowly eating, and ideally drinking a little bit of liquid, but not very much, and waiting until 1 to 2 hours after we eat our food to drink liquid, or drinking water at least 20 minutes before we eat. These are really conscious things we can do to improve our digestion. When we drink a lot of water and liquid during a meal, we dilute our digestive enzymes, and we make the process of digestion slower. So consciously chewing and consciously choosing when you're going to drink your liquids relative to the meals that you're having is a really wonderful way to improve your digestion, make it easier on those organs that are trying to get the job done. The third thing we can do to more consciously form a relationship with our digestion is by supplementing ourselves and getting more specific with what we're putting inside of our body. So for me, it's having a multivitamin B complex in the morning. It's having my adrenal supplements to help my adrenal glands get the nutrients that they need so they don't get fired up, because they have a tendency to get fired up, which can throw my whole physiology out of whack. Sometimes, what it's going to look like for people is having a smoothie in the morning. Sometimes it's going to look like intermittent fasting, although that is not something that Dr. Natalia nor myself recommend doing on a long-term basis, right? Because when we fast, guess what? We activate those adrenal glands, and if we're not conscious and aware of that happening, we can very surely get ourselves stuck in that sympathetic fight or flight response. So we want to be very conscious about, how we are conditioning our physiology, and not just getting stuck in a dogma, thinking that this is the way. It's the same thing can be said with eating meat or not eating meat, being vegetarian, being vegan, right? These are different decisions and dogmas that are going to serve us at different times. But if we get stuck in the dogma of what the right way of eating is, or the right way of supplementing ourselves is, then we get locked in a perspective. We get, limited in our perspective. And again, that is going to be a limitation that might not necessarily serve us. We are dynamic beings. We need to be able to adapt and listen to our body. So, fourth way we can begin to develop a more intimate relationship with our digestion in this lower part of ourself is by slowing down and connecting with this part of ourself, listening to our body, listening to our heart and our chest and our lungs, listening to our solar plexus, this upper part of our digestive tract, including the pancreas, the spleen, the liver, the gallbladder, the stomach, and the small intestine, the upper aspect of the small intestine. There's a lot to listen to in that solar plexus in there. And one of the best ways to do it is to just put your hands along those lower ridges of the ribs and to breathe into that area and just feel, where does it feel stuck? Does it feel inflamed? Does it feel icky? Does it feel like it's going too fast? Does it feel like it's going too slow? What does that feel like? And how can that feeling sensation and consciously connecting with it with your central nervous system inform you how you need to be eating or how you need to be supplementing yourself? The fifth way we can begin to consciously form a relationship with our digestive system is by seeking out help. Whether it be going to Lotus Path and starting to do the Zytoscan to get very specific information about what foods and what things are inflaming your system in your life. Whether it be receiving NIS or acupuncture care with Kelly Toms at Lotus Path, whether it be receiving neuroacupuncture care with Teresa, who is going to get really specific about listening to that Zytoscan and stimulating key pathways through acupuncture and other means to help reduce the body's inflammation. Maybe you need to go over to Dr. Allison with Soria Medicine and get a really thorough blood work to understand where there are hormonal imbalances. Maybe it's scheduling a healthy habits coaching session with Dr. Natalia to get really clear about what are simple little things you can do throughout the day to be more conscious of what your body needs, what your mind needs, and how you can develop a lifestyle that's going to be congruent with not just a dogma, but a developing belief system about health and wellness and a growing process that is available to all of us. That's really what it comes down to. Again, how we digest life is directly proportional to, or directly related to, how we digest physically, physiologically. So it's so interesting how the mental emotional has such an effect on how we digest. When we slow down, when we decrease our stimulus to our central nervous system, when we consciously eat, when we listen to our body, when we get specific with supplementation and diet, when we seek out help and get more specific with how we're receiving guidance and counsel, good things start to happen. We start to move forwards. We get to actually form healthy tissue. We proactively choose to digest our food in a healthy way and get on top of it so that our body is thoroughly breaking down the nutrients and minerals and macronutrients that we need in order to build healthy tissue. And a big part of that, of being able to do that, is having proper nervous system stimulation. We need to be in that parasympathetic rest and digest healing state in order for things such as growth hormone to repair our bones and muscles while we sleep. We need to have both things in order for it to work. So we can't just focus on the supplementation and the probiotics and the digestive health. We also have to work on the nervous system health because the two are at interplay with one another. The chiropractic adjustments have been so essential for me on my healing journey of getting my nervous system to a place of stillness and peace, and honestly just being able to enjoy a meal in silence and enjoy stillness within myself, feeling like my body and my innate wisdom inside of me is healing myself from the inside out, and thoroughly digesting life experiences and digesting the food that I'm putting in, that I'm consciously putting in. I would say chiropractic was a catalyst for a lot of changes in my belief systems in my life. And one of those most important catalysts was being able to consciously choose what I'm putting in my body and recognizing, hey, just because I feel good or look good, because I would be going to the gym and working out and everything, doesn't mean that I'm necessarily healthy. And I would look at my stools and say, that's not a healthy stool. There's something that I'm not doing that is limiting my expression of health. And I think for a lot of people, as hard as it's going to sound, it's caffeine. A lot of people are drinking caffeine and they really don't. We really don't need that stimulus. And it is what's the word? It pulls water out of our body. I'm blanking on the word right now, but caffeine pulls water out of our body, and that's why we get that quick poop after we drink caffeine. But I would make the argument that that quick poop is often, that stool is not solid. It's often wet. It's not a healthy poop. We haven't fully digested that stool that we're letting go through us. So I hope this was helpful. I hope that you learned a thing or two. I just wanted to kind of go through the gamut of what my perspective is on digestive health and how that relates to the nervous system.